Hi, Misha here, and it's time for the Autumn Patreon Q&A. I believe it's number 19. And we have Jero with us again, because you don't want me doing this by myself with just the cats. It'll be very boring. Now, as you know, Jay recently, the original Jay, recently published a video explaining where he's at and what he's been up to. He was invited to participate today. He thought about it, but he didn't have time from his work schedule, so it is what it is, but just know he was invited, and we'll continue to invite him next time. But with that, we're going to get to some Patreon questions. And as you know, Patreon membership, $1 and up, you can ask as many questions as you want, and try to do these videos every 2 or 3 months as time and seasons allow. Well, with that, we'll just dive in. We've got a handful of questions. Number 1, what do we got?
Okay, first question is from Hank. Good day, Misha. Question.
Hank Hill? Hank Hill?
The question is not about propane, nor is it about propane accessories, so...
Damn it.
That would have been cool, though.
Damn it, Bobby.
Good day, Misha. Question. Does the sporter version of the Vepr rifle contain any U.S. parts for legal purposes? By the way, Hank says you are the best firearms channel on YouTube, period.
Thanks for the question, although I must second guess your taste. But anyway, I don't have a standard Vepr sporter gun with the thumbhole stock and everything, but I have my Vepr 12 shotgun. And no, these guns do not need U.S. parts. They're as imported because they qualify as sporting. The rifle gets away with it because even though it's a double stack mag well, it only accepts 10 round magazines or less. It also, if it has a threaded barrel, the thread cap is attached with a pin, therefore the threads don't exist magically. It has a thumbhole stock instead of a pistol grip. It doesn't have any evil features, therefore it's importable. Now, interestingly, shotguns used to have the exact same rules, but in 2011, 2012, memory fades, they decided that a pistol grip on a shotgun here was legal as a sporting purpose. It was considered something useful for competition, 3-gun, that kind of sporting thing, as would be a threaded barrel for chokes. So shotguns have a little bit more leniency. Of course, on the other hand, they have to have an 18-inch barrel, all that good stuff. So no, the Vepr sporter, be it a rifle or shotgun, is pure Russian.
Does that also kind of apply to the Saiga and the Benelli M4?
The Saiga, yes. The not the SGL-21s, but the standard. Now the Benelli is a little trickier. The standard 11707 has a pistol grip, but a fixed stock, and even though it looks like it has a long tube, it has a 4+1. However, there's a caveat in the law. If a shotgun is imported for government use, law enforcement namely, and then sold off later as surplus to needs, it can have the collapsing stock and a high capacity tube. High capacity on a shotgun is not 10, it's actually 5. It's weird. It's all trade stuff, guys. This isn't a criminal code thing. The whole 922R thing is just trade, like international trade stuff. So it's not the same thing as, say, the NFA, the National Firearms Act, which has SBRs, SBSs, all that good stuff.
Question 2. Matt says, hello, Misha. What would you say, in your opinion, is your favorite variant of the M16? Personally, mine is the A2, mostly due to nostalgia. Thanks for the great videos, and I'm looking forward to your content in the future.
That's tough. I want to just say the SP1, the original M16A1, but that's kind of boring. So in that same vein, I decided to pick the XM177E2 just because of its Vietnam connection, and it's basically an M16A1 but in carbine form. I've always liked the metal stock and the whole 2-position factor. In or out, that's it, guys. And I love how light these are. They're under 6 pounds. Oh, wow. Yeah, 11.5-inch barrel. Originally this is 12 for legal reasons, and the giant moderator was just kind of cool. But you know, plus it was in platoon, so you know.
Well, when you consider that new Ace that we were talking about earlier was 8 pounds, that's a pretty light. That's 6 pounds or so. It's a pretty light rifle.
Oh yeah, I mean even the regular M16, M16A1 is 7-ish pounds, so saving a pound. But the whole idea behind the AR-15 and the 223 round for that matter, and the magazine, since while they're made of alloy, lightweight. It's almost as if they had a huge clunky heavy gun before it, and then they decided that was a bad idea. By the way, I'm talking about the M14. So what do you think? I know you have an AR. What's kind of your favorite or thoughts on it?
Well, I mean, these days, the ARs have become so modular and customizable and adaptable that I think that what you get straight out of the box is very rarely likely to end up, with the configuration that you've got on your rifle by the time you're done with it.
And interestingly, even from the beginning, when Colt bought the AR from Armalite, they were keying in on that modularity factor. Even in the 60s, if you look at like a Colt catalog from 64, they were already advertising different barrel lengths and different stocks and possibilities.
Well, and ironically enough, the same thing that makes it the most appealing widespread rifle in America, popularity-wise, is the exact same thing that has the gun grabbers so excited about it.
Yeah.
You can make it as tactical and scary and...
Well, more importantly, you can make it one way and then change your mind a couple of years later and totally strip all that crap off and go a whole different direction.
Yeah. I mean, and really, because the design's been out as long as it has, you can get fairly low-end inexpensive parts combined with high-end expensive parts and still end up with a fully functional rifle. I mean, and
that's called PSA, and that's not even a joke. I mean, that's what they do. They focus on some high-end parts like the FN barrel.
Sure.
But to keep costs down, they'll import parts from China or somewhere equivalent in East Asia, like say buffers or trigger packs or whatever.
Well, and ultimately it's your upper end barrel that's going to make the biggest difference. I mean, that AR that I brought out has got a Wilson upper on it, Wilson barrel. Shoots great, and it's got a Bushmaster lower on it.
Oh, Bushmasters. I mean, I would also say that your buffer in the back of your gun also matters a lot.
And sure.
I say that knowing how much buffers affect reliability, but I've also seen cheap buffers break because it is taking a big bit of the energy in the gun.
Right.
So a good buffer is a inexpensive part and just a great way to ensure your gun will keep gunning.
And I can think of a couple of examples. One is a company that I'm doing some work for that's doing some R&D stuff, and another one is a Wilson product that came out not too long ago. And when it comes to new innovations, buffer and recoil system is kind of where the changes are happening.
Oh yeah, and then those have been going on forever. In fact, I've got a Colt LMG out there that has the old school hydraulic buffer, and while it has issues, I mean leaking because hydraulics, when you shoot it, it is very soft. I mean the liquid in there really dampens vibrations and all kinds of cool stuff. So yeah, it's a known thing and it's neat. But yeah, you can really just, I mean, I've got like that Gal 5A, the ASDW, it's a takedown gun. That's
Sure.
cool. And then on the other hand, there's the Colt M4A1 that's kind of a beefeater.
Right. Well, and when I say buffer and recoil systems, I'm primarily talking about felt recoil.
Yeah.
How much actual moving reciprocating mass is there in the gun? I mean, like for example, that's why you've got so many people trying to trim down a little extra weight in their BCGs. Anyway, no, I mean, I love the AR platform.
So basically, your answer would be the one you build for yourself.
Yes.
Yeah, fair enough. And I think that'd be a lot of people's kind of. I just think for me, the XM177 is that nice blend of history, and I really like shooting one because it's so slim and trim.
Sure.
I do tend to like the slim and trim ARs because to me that's kind of what it was always meant to be, and because 223 is such a low recoiling round, at least comparatively, you can get away with that.
Yeah,
you wouldn't want to have a 6-pound 308. That'd suck.
Right. And I mean, and how you've got it configured is totally a question of application and what you intend to use it for, and how you're going to carry it around.
And you can always redo it as needed.
Okay. Andy Cervantes says, "Howdy, Misha and Jay. What are your options on the price of the Romanian PSL? and whether or not you would recommend buying it at this time or wait it out for potential chance on the price lowering down the road.
Interesting question, and I'm not sure if you asked this before or after I put up the video, but we did a pretty extensive video comparing the modern 2020, 2021 PSL versus older ones. Unfortunately, the days of cheap PSLs are over. Back in the day, you could get one with the scope, new production for $700, and then there was a time when they were the kit build guns for as low as $500. Those are gone for various reasons. I hate to say it, but it's about as cheap as it's probably going to get. I mean, it was bumping $3K a while back, a couple of years ago. At least now it's down closer to $2,000, and at least you do get a brand new production Belarusian scope and a nice new production barrel that AK Operators Union says is pretty darn accurate. I just don't see a major decline. The trend for all Romy guns has been going up in price, be it the Wasser, the AES-10B, the PSL. So if you want one, gotta bite the bullet.
And that's nice that it comes with solid optics.
Yeah, I mean, because the old ones, they came with surplus optics, which were certainly durable and good when they were brand new, but I'm sure they had a nominal check. You know, they wouldn't send you a broken one, but yeah, he was used.
I mean, when you think about accessories that people might buy, you know, that's something that you can dump an awful lot of cheddar into in a hurry.
Well, in the original times, the old Soviet type optics, the 4-powers, you know, they were bringing a couple $100 tops, maybe even $100 if you found a deal. Nowadays, if you go to find one on Gunbroker, just the loose optic, if it's in good shape, you're looking at $300-400. So they've definitely gone up, like everything. It's just the desirability has gone up so much.
I can't imagine why.
More shooters, and the com block stuff is kind of getting retro cool. I mean, the reason Romanian guns and other guns were so inexpensive in the 90s and early 2000s, the market was pretty small on them. Not a lot of guys were into them.
I'm trying to remember the statistic I heard the other day, and I want to say it was something along the lines of 40 million first-time gun owners in the United States in the last 5 years.
Oh, yeah, I could believe it. Again, part of it's just a generation coming up. Part of it in 2020 alone, I'm sure there were several million new ones. And of course, you know, there's all kinds of reasons to have a gun. It's not just one purpose. You could just be a sports shooter, or you could be a little old lady who just wants a 25 caliber in her underwear drawer.
Little pearl handled deal.
Yeah, just little, you know, there's all kinds of different things. It doesn't have to be a thousands of dollars gun that they put a lot of effort into. And of course, as Gramps passes on, his
Sure.
guns go to the grandkids, and they tend to disperse out versus being in one place. So
Yeah, I have no idea how they calculated that statistic, and
Yeah.
I don't know how much of that is, like you said, a generational hand-me-down thing or whatever.
I would imagine maybe 44. I don't know. Yeah, there'd be a lot of factors. You know, probably gun sales versus anything. But you know, the point is, if you want a PSL, I don't see them really going down. They are good guns. At one time, they were undervalued. I think they might be a little overpriced now, but not majorly. It is a military-grade DMR, so.
Yeah, you know, I mean, how much do you want for
Yeah,
$1,200 or so?
exactly.
You got people out there who are like, this gun isn't $500. This makes me mad.
Yeah,
Well-
I mean, what is it? I mean, you don't buy a PSL because you're on the bleeding edge of technology. You buy it because you want a Dragunov-looking thing that saw military service. So you're kind of already in that ballpark. And if you compare the PSL to, say, the Zastava M91, which is 3K, and the FEG HD18, which was like 6.8K, it is the cheaper gun in that range.
Sure.
So, it's all relative. If you get one, I think you'll enjoy it. You know, long after the credit card bills are paid off, you can enjoy the gun. That's kind of usually how I feel. Okay, so we're on question numero 4.
Number 4. This is a good one. Terry Mount asks, thoughts on the Arsenal SAM7SF-94E? Good investment to hang on to it or not?
This is one of those things I think the the internet's a little more focused on than I am. I would have brought out my SAM7SF, but it's been in so many Q&As. I brought out the SAM5. Kind of brings the same point to hand. Arsenal, well, K-Bar really, said that the SAM561 was a limited production gun. They weren't lying, technically speaking. The SAM561 was. The thing is, they introduced the SAM562 this year, which they've imported in greater numbers. What's the difference, you might ask? The muzzle device. The 61 has a muzzle nut. The 62 has this shark gill style break. That's kind of the same situation with the SAM7SF-94. It's the same as the 84, except it has the quad rail, the AR M9 setup. You can take any SAM7SF and add that to it if you get a quad rail. The reason it was a limited run, that's the number of furniture sets they had for it. So my point is, the bare bones gun, the base gun, the barrel, the receiver, the bolt group, it's the same as any other SAM7SF when imported as a sporter gun. It's just here in the USA, they dress it up a little differently. Just as I put AR M9 furniture on mine. Arsenal does lots of limited run guns. That's cool and all, but I think people overestimate just how much desirability there is to that. It's just, I don't know, it's a thing.
Right.
They give new part numbers every time they change anything, as they should. That way you can easily identify the configuration. But at its core, it's just a SAM7SF with different furniture on it.
Well, and when you think about it, you know, people really like the cachet of having a low serial number gun.
Well, the serials won't change because they're just out of the standard. They don't have a unique serial range.
Oh, okay.
They're just out of the same sporter pool. Because all the guns come in with thumbhole stocks and all that. But here they're given folding stocks, pistol grips, and you know, in the case of the 84, a plastic handguard. In the case of the 94, the rail handguard. And it has a top rail too. It's fine and all. It is a little heavier than the 84, so but it's neat and all. But I'd get one because you want one, not because you're going to make bank.
Sure.
So I think it'll go up a little bit, but they're already pretty expensive as is. They're already $2,000, so how much can they really go up?
Yeah, I mean, who knows how long it'll be before it becomes more of a buyer's market than a seller's market.
Right, and a lot of times when guns are made expressly to be collectible, they don't appreciate as much as just your bog standard gun.
Sure. I mean, it's only worth as much as you can get for it.
Yep.
Okay, our next question comes from somebody whose birth certificate must look a little strange.
Probably.
I would have never named my kid Redacted. But
or question mark. Could be the doctor, you know.
But yes, we will kindly redact anybody's
no worries.
information that's necessary. Question 1. What is your opinion on the cheapest decent build 7.62 AK rifle that's currently being imported or manufactured in the U.S.?
I would have to say the Zastava, frankly, if you're talking about money. Now, this is, of course, my older OPAP, but the current ZPAP is the same configuration, but with the chrome line barrel. They have a good track record. Are there a few lemons? Sure, but Zastava is importing in large numbers, so the more you import, yeah. Nice blued finish, nice bolt carrier left in the white, as it were, and just a high quality gun. And that's probably the least expensive good quality. They're really hanging in there with the Wasser, and I would say ZPAP versus Wasser these days. I would definitely go with the ZPAP. If you wanted to bump it up and go US made, the Kalashnikov USA KR 103 seems to be doing well, but it is still relatively new. Early results are good, but early results for the C39 were also good, and later on not so good. But yeah, I would say Century goofed because they originally had the import stuff for Zastava and they let it go, and they allowed a major competitor to get into the market with Zastava USA, and they seem to be really pushing and delivering a good product at a good price.
Yeah, there was kind of a follow-up to his question, or at least a specific example. The Cougar Wasser 10 was sort of branded as like a great entry-level, low-cost rifle.
Sure. And Romanian guns have been coming in since '97. The Romac ones, the SAR ones, the Wasser 10s. But now the Wasser 10 is, they got the V2, and they've done a few things like the furniture is no longer military furniture on them, and the price has gone up quite a bit. You still might be able to find one slightly cheaper than the Zastava, but then again, maybe not. And push comes to shove, I would say Zastava a little nicer fit and finish than a Romanian.
Yeah, and this furniture is actually really nice.
Yeah, this is original military that came on the OPEP. The current ones have new furniture, but it's the same pattern: rubber butt plate, extended handguards. That's kind of nice.
Sure.
The only downside is that they're not fully interchangeable, but enough companies make Zastava compliant, M70 compliant furniture. It's not a big deal.
Well, and this looks like it's made out of a fairly decent oak grain. It's not. It doesn't look like somebody took a 2x4.
No.
And then just routed it down.
No, they didn't. I'm trying to think what they've used walnut. They've used elm, birch, sometimes beech. So generally speaking, quite high quality wood, and you get it in polymer too.
Name Redacted also had a similar question about 5.56 AKs.
Yeah, and the SAM5 is a milled receiver gun, nice quality, but you're looking at $1,800. The Baril is a little bit cheaper at $1,500, but they tend to sell out immediately. So again, I'm going to say Zastava with their M90 here. These are usually gettable. They're usually in stock, and they're about $1,200 to $1,300. So they're the cheapest. They're in stock. They come with the Zhukov stock, which some hate, but you can always just pull it off. They come with this Hogue handguard, which looks a little funny, but it's actually really comfortable. You get an 18-inch barrel, cold hammer forged chrome line. You get an adjustable gas system, which may be of limited utility, but it's there. You get a side scope mount, the usual stuff. But yeah, for the money, it's a good option. And we took this out and shot it, and it kind of surprised me how it shot. It was pretty pleasant shooting experience.
Yeah, it was pretty comfortable.
Yeah, and no real issues or anything like that. And the mags are cheap enough for them, like $25. So, and it tends to use Arsenal mags or Baril mags. So that kind of came out of nowhere. But if you're talking about affordable but good quality, I'm going to say that as far as U.S. made, I'm not really aware of anyone doing a real good U.S. 223 5.56 AK that's strictly speaking an AK. Yeah, I think I would stick with imports there.
There was a question that we would get all the time when I was working at Wilson, and it's, when are you going to start making 7.62 ARs? And there's just kind of a feed reliability.
Well, and the thing
mechanical issue with that.
And there's no military demand for a 7.62x39 AR to speak of, outside of maybe a few oddities. With 5.56 AKs, there's actually a major military demand by former combat countries who want to keep using the AK for its obvious assets, but yet to want to standardize and be operable with NATO. Their solution is 5.56 AK. And if you design them from the ground up to work, not just half-ass it, they're fine.
Let's see here. Question 6, Tim Bone. Hey guys, I was wondering if the Russian weapon and ammo ban worked both ways. Are American-made firearms and ammo available for sale in Russia? And if so, how much do they cost? What do the Russians think of American firearms like S&W and Colt?
Well, one thing, S&W and Colt, if we're talking handguns, there's really no way as a civilian to buy a handgun in Russia. So probably not much. Even as a civilian there, all the guns I remember seeing in the stores were Russian type. It's pretty restricted on what you can have. Shotguns are easier, so an 870 would be okay. But some automatics are pretty restricted. I don't remember any Colts at all there. Yeah, I'm not I haven't been there in a while to really know, but civilian ownership of guns is so restricted and has become more restricted over the last 10 years that I don't think Americans think much of them. But Russians think much of American guns because they really have an opportunity to shoot them. Now, in Russia, they do make their own AR clones, which is kind of funny. So that tends to be the Russian way of doing things, just clone it. But
sure.
The gun market over there is so much smaller than here. It's not even a thing. And it gets back to the bilateral agreement that Russia and the USA signed in 1994, where they both basically said, we're not going to export military-type guns to your people, which obviously affected us more than them.
How much would you say, and this question may be a little, beyond your wheelhouse, how much of that do you think is a question of legality and Russian attempts on gun control, and how much of that do you think is cultural? I mean, do you think that as a market, as a people, they just aren't as interested in being a gun-owning culture?
No, hunting is actually a big part of Russian life and always has been. Plus, if you're out kind of in the wilds, self-defense, bears, but honestly, wolves.
There's a lot of wilds in Russia. It's a very big place.
Wolves are probably the biggest thing. Think about it, So, no, there's certainly a gun culture in Russia, certainly more than a lot of, because there is more of a frontier there. Mm-hmm. But it does tend to be more geared towards defending against four-legged things than two-legged. Now, of course, under communism, they cracked down on firearms, but even before communism, during the Tsarist times, when you have a monarch, you don't want populations owning guns. So they've never really had free and open access to guns. It was always something more for the gentry, not unlike England used to be.
I wonder what the most popular wolf hunting guns are.
The Saiga 410, called the Cossack, is a pretty popular self-defense gun against smaller critters like wolves. 410, multiple shot.
Sure.
SKSs are pretty popular over there, although they do have to take the bayonets off because they don't allow bayonets on civilian guns ever. And of course the Tiger, the SVD for the civilian market. But that's kind of for more of the high rollers.
I've never entirely understood, from a legal perspective, the thing with bayonets.
I think
it's perfectly fine to have a high power firearm, but nothing you could stick somebody with.
I think it's kind of looking at it backwards. When they were trying to ban evil military guns, they thought, well,
everything had a bayonet.
What defines a military gun? Bayonet. What defines a civilian gun? No bayonet. So I think in the beginning it was an easy way to ID military versus civilian, and of course over time that's gotten muddled infinitely.
Sure.
But it wasn't so much that they were like, oh, we don't want bayonets on our guns, as we don't want the guns that can't take bayonets in civilian hands.
I totally want to see a Russian video of a bayonet bear fight.
They actually do weird things with bayonets over there if you want to have them. They actually kind of untemper the metal, where if you tried to use it, it would shatter. Yeah, it's weird.
That's nice.
Plus, rubber. They're like rubber thing. But no, guns over there don't have bayonet lugs. It's a hard rule. It's just like handguns. There's virtually no way as an individual, unless your job needs it, of course, like you're Putin, or if you're Putin's friend. I mean, if you're Putin's friend, you could probably own a nuke. Alrighty.
Okay, Moose wants to know, and he says this is kind of a hypothetical question.
Like moose and squirrel?
Moose and squirrel. He says this is a hypothetical, but it's probably actually not hypothetical. Let's say you have an FMAK-4721 and a SAM7SF-94E. One of 200 made total.
Same thing.
If you had to keep just one, would you keep the Molot or the 94E?
I'd keep whichever one you like better. I mean, from a military collectible, the SAM794 is at least based on a military-style gun. The FM4721, while it is based on the RPKM, is very much a civilian gun because of the cut-down 16-inch barrel. But I don't know. I mean, the Arsenal gun, as I said earlier, is a unique variant, but they've imported thousands of the base model. The Russian gun, they've imported thousands of, but they're sanctioned, they're banned from import. Plus, there's a certain cachet that comes with being made in Russia. At the end of the day, they're so close together. Lots of videos have been done. You know, we've even done comparisons. Whichever one you like, man. I mean, it's, yeah.
And the question was about keeping. Not,
yeah, I know. I'm just saying.
Selling. So I think that's even more applicable.
Yeah, just whichever one makes you happy. Because to me, a gun like that, since they're modern, you should shoot them. You're not gonna have much more in value worth keeping it brand spanking new in the box versus shooting it once in a while and taking care of it.
Right.
And the enjoyment you should get out of shooting it should more than make up for the 10% you might lose in value. That's always been my attitude, though.
By the way, Earl's on set.
Of course Earl's on set.
He finally found a comfy place on the ledge behind the... Mr. Earl!
It's kind of what I was telling you earlier about putting anything delicate there. We'd hear... But anyway, yeah, I mean, it's your choice, your gun. It's either way is cool, but certainly, I don't know, yeah.
Christopher Smith asks, hi Misha, in your opinion, what's the most interesting or cool firearm coming down the pipeline for the U.S. market? By that, it can be import has been approved, or the shipping is fucked up so it takes a minute, or perhaps Arsenal managed to sort their breakup with Bulgaria and not drown their U.S. business. Zastava has been hitting it out of the park. Century is mainly cancer. Yeah,
Century's been really quiet lately. Yeah, they haven't, aside from some PSLs and some Wasser 10s, they haven't really done anything new. I agree, Zastava's been doing it well. Arsenal has actually kind of come back doing the SAM7 variants we've already talked about, the SAM7K pistols, the SAM5s. They're doing pretty good. Kalashnikov USA is taking their time, but they are doing a good job of kind of replacing the Russian Saigas. But you know, after 2020, I think most people are just trying to collect themselves. Supplies are still a little hinky from overseas. No one's really saying much of what's coming, and part of it is, like, for example, the NRA show being canceled last month. These shows aren't really happening. I think right now, most companies are just trying to get their feet back under them and get back to production. So they've been a little skittish in announcing new products because they don't know when and if they'll be able to deliver them.
Yeah, there's been a lot less adventurism, I would say.
Yeah, well,
when it comes to people just kind of wanting to try something new, let's test it out, see if there's a market for it.
R&D costs money, and it's so I don't know. I haven't really heard of much outside of what you, I'm sure, have already heard of coming in. But that's not to say it won't happen. But for example, Arsenal, one thing they're good about is not really waving around what they're going to import until it's pretty much
until they've got it in hand.
Yeah, you know, they might tell you
when it's a done deal.
Yeah, barring the AK-20, which I knew was kind of BS in the beginning. But Zastava's not too. I mean, usually if Zastava says they're going to do something, they will. And now that we've got the biggest ones I was waiting on this year were with the Barils, and those all came, and even second batches came. A little slow, but yeah, I think right now we're just going to see companies trying to get back to what they were producing before. But you know, there's a lot of optimism as to what maybe CZ could do with Colt. Not saying they will, but they could. Century could bring stuff out of Romania. The Polish stuff, frankly, we're kind of getting what we're getting right now. There might be a couple of new things from WBP, but yeah, and who knows about Hungary, but guys, I wouldn't put a lot of stock in FEG defense. Could be wrong, kind of hope I am wrong, but I don't get the impression they're really going to be doing a whole lot. And you know, one thing that's been kind of quiet is Checkpoint with the Czech guns. They've kind of been, But as we've shown in the videos, IWI's done some kind of limited run guns. They introduced the General Galil Gen 2, Ace Gen 2, and they've done the Rock and Lock Ace, and they've done the 545 Ace. So, yeah, they've always kind of been someone to keep an eye on. Pretty much all the foreign makers of military-type guns today are importing to the USA if legally allowed to do so.
You know what I think would be cool? A white flash as we go to break.
I think so. Okay, I think we left off at 8, so we're on to 9?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, user Orgear asks, if you could reintroduce the U.S. market one rifle currently banned from import, which one would it be?
Oh, I really don't know. You know, the 89 banned a few by name, but it banned so many by characteristics. It's almost a toss-up. But one I just really enjoy shooting is kind of underappreciated, so I thought, why not show it some love, is the South Korean Daewoo K2. I don't know. It's just, it's a fun gun. It's an AR, but it's not an AR. These are really well made, and they were inexpensive, and they were unique, but not radically so like some of the bullpups and other craziness you see.
That's it?
Yeah. It's, you know, kind of its own thing.
Yeah, I don't think I'd seen this one before.
It's, you know, AR-esque, but something shifted back there, really. I'm just going to make sure nothing's going to come on our heads in a minute. Yeah, it was just the Zastava.
Yeah, it looks fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's fine. It's fine. Everything's fine.
But no, yeah, it's just, you know, I don't know, kind of neat gun. They were inexpensive for what the quality was, and I think it'd be something. And still current issue. There's a modern variant out. Another one, maybe I'd love to see an FNC variant, especially if it were made in Sweden. I don't know.
Cool.
I don't know. Just seemed like a gun to point out. A lot of guns that are still made today are actually imported. And the problem is just the foreign manufacturers are gone. So
with the furniture, it looks a little bit like a Israeli FAL.
yeah, but it's kind of based on the FAL a bit, the G3 a bit, AR quite a bit, AK a little bit. It's just South Korea kind of took what they thought was a good idea. Now the Daewoo company itself is gone, but S&T Motive is still around, and they still kind of keep them going for the South Korean military. So
didn't they make cars?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Amongst everything else, home appliances.
Were they kind of a nationalized company in that regard, or?
It's more complicated than that. You know, at that time when they got going, South Korea really had a dictator, if in, you know, reality, if not name, and then they became pretty much. All the companies became privatized when the Cold War ended. And some survived, but even if they did, they tended to change names. So, yeah, a lot of them didn't. And then, of course, there are guns that I would love to have, like the Japanese Type 64 or Type 89, but those aren't so much banned from import as Japan never would have exported a semi-automatic version. That was just literally against their constitution. So,
oh wow,
some guns we'd just never see. Kind of the same thing goes for Canada. I'd love to see a Canadian FAL semi-auto built up there, but
sure, that
was never really in the cards.
I like to see just about any FAL.
No joke. And really, funny enough, about the only place making FALs now is the USA with DSA. Although it's possible Imbel could still make them, or maybe FMAP, but really the only solid FAL maker in 2021 is actually here, us. We tend to preserve a lot of guns like that when they go out of production for militaries and the rest of the world, we keep making them.
Moving on, Richard Anderson asks, I was wondering if you're familiar with M1 carbine. Oh wait, nope, I skipped number 10, didn't I?
I think you read number 10.
No, this one's from Antigonus.
Okay.
Any word on commercial AR-70 and 90 bombers getting set up?
Yeah, I did look that up. Again, 2020 kind of shelved that. The good news is 80% receivers and barrels are coming out, and I believe the gentleman who's doing them is called Troy Est. I can give contact info if needed, so contact me. But work is progressing, but much like with the SETME L, it just takes time to do it right. But it'll happen. The kits are here, and I've talked to a few people that have used his receivers to build them up, and they seem nice. They really do. I will get on that myself, but just haven't had time. But
sure, really
cool gun. I wish Beretta had built them up and done them. That would have been great, kind of like how the Wasser 1063 was done. But I think the ARX 100 just kind of made Beretta gun shy about such types of guns because of how poorly it sold. Oh well.
Speaking of 80% guns, I haven't really heard anything recently. I was wondering if maybe you had when it comes to
Nah.
Whether that's on the table for
The ATF
regulation.
There's been all kinds of proposals for new laws tossed about, the 80% stuff, the upper lower being registered on a AR, the import, who knows? I don't think even they know. I've even heard all kinds of crazy things about January and the Attorney General getting involved. I don't know. I guess we'll find out. I mean, we can't do crap to change it, really. I mean, at least until if they actually propose something hardcore and they're going to go through with it and they do that opinion thing, then you can submit the don't do it. And you know, to be fair, that's what saved the M855 ammo thing years ago. The military, pitch a fit. That's what's kept arm braces legal all these years.
I would actually be surprised if they tried to do anything that was at all controversial or, might kind of move the needle on the middle or on the middle of the country before November of next year. You know what would
be really surprising? If we just left Afghanistan with tons and tons of ammo and guns there. Man, the way they've done things, never say never. I can't predict.
That's funny because that's exactly what we did with Afghanistan.
Kind of my point, yeah. Yeah, I know. A government able and willing to do that. Speaking of, that kind of leads into our next question about Uncle Sugar.
Oh, wow. Captain Segway over here. Richard Anderson asks, I was wondering if you're familiar with M1 carbines with German markings. I have an inland with all matching numbers. The symbols added to the rifle identify it as belonging to a southern Austrian border police unit. How did these folks get them, and how do you know the story? And do you know the story on the same? At one time, maybe now, they were listed as not as valuable as matching numbers without German markings.
For one thing, there's no such thing as matching numbers on a U.S. gun. There's one serial number on an M1 carbine on the receiver. If there's a serial number on the stock, that was added post facto by someone else. No, the U.S. produced 6.5 million of these, and they were meant to be inexpensive, light, and pretty short duration guns. Also, following World War II, Germany and Japan were not allowed to make guns, especially Germany. I can't imagine why. But they still needed police, they still needed border guards, and, the Soviet Union was very much a thing, no more so after 1947. The U.S. gave tons, millions of M1 carbines and M1 Grands and other guns to all kinds of allies. France, Britain, Italy. Italy is a big one for the M1 Grand. And West Germany and Austria. So we had way more M1s than we needed. So we let them re-equip with it. And the Soviets did the same thing with Eastern Europe, with East Germany. They gave... Well, sometimes they literally gave back K98s that they confiscated, but
sure.
Regardless, Mosins, whatever. The world had so many surplus guns at that time.
Oh, yeah.
Why not redo them? So, and I don't think that it really hurts the value. The German carbines were known for being well cared for. Germany would...
and only dropped once.
Germany would refurbish them. They would even rebarrel them sometimes. You see them with the police, the border guard, the BGS, and sometimes you'll even see them kind of like with the forestry service, which, if you think about it, kind of a neat little forestry gun.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, they were ubiquitous all throughout Europe. They were also used in Japan. A lot were given to Japan. A lot ended up in Israel after, 1948. 6.5 million. We had a lot to go around.
What would you say the major successors to the M1 in most of the world's militaries would have been? It's a solid enough platform that I don't think there was really any kind of planned obsolescence for it.
Well, they knew that the receiver could only take so many thousands of rounds. So there was kind of like, okay, this is good for 10,000 rounds and then it's going to crack. It was just how it was. His life. But no, it's, the M1 carbine was kind of, it was a unique gun, done lots of history, but it really was replaced by guns like the XM177 or the Uzi. And it did show the main hindrance to the M1, and of course the M2, the Select Fire version, which mine actually is set up to mock here, is the cartridge. .30 caliber U.S. carbine, 7.62 by 33. It's a limited round, round nose, not really, very gentle taper to the case, pretty low. So that was the main deficiency, was the cartridge itself. And, there was no real way around that based on the gun. But it did show the way, and, you had the M2, Select Fire, you had the M3, which had night vision capability, or infrared. So it definitely was a neat little gun. And the funny thing is, it was kind of a second line. It was kind of a second string gun, just because they couldn't train soldiers fast enough to use, say, the 1911. So
Sure.
Carbine's a little more familiar. Handguns, I would say the 7.65 Mauser was an early one. And of course that led directly to 7.62 Tokarev. That's a bottleneck cartridge. 8mm Nambu. And we're just talking pistols because M1 carbine is technically classified as pistol round. 8mm Nambu was bottlenecked. Those are the big ones that come to mind for pistol. Rifle, of course, pretty much all of them.
Sure.
And whereas rifle went to Spitzer pointed bullets pretty early on, pistol, not so much. And of course, hollow points weren't really used for military purposes. It was ball ammo.
Yeah, it's cheaper.
Well, the rules of war, Geneva Convention and all that stuff. Plus feeding. It was hard to get hollow points to feed reliably back in the day.
Let's see. Moving on to question 12. Are the 551P 2SPs slated for import in late 2021? The end of the road for JDI imports in terms of SAN Swiss SIG imports? And do you anticipate introduction of other models by JDI?
Well, just for you, I asked Dave that question, and his response, the official line is, right now, the only guns planned to come in for 2021 are the 551s. That's it. 2022, who knows? Because the government. No one's really wanting to make commitments, put money in, put time in, until we see what the government does, the ATF does, or does not do. Again, the ATF's floating around so many proposals for things. Who knows what's smoke and mirrors, and who knows what's the reality? And I think that's intentional. I think they're doing so much to try to kind of confuse the direction they really are going in. So right now, after the 551s, there are no plans, but that's not because end of the road necessarily, is more like saying imports, JDI, Dave Wagner, or SAN, which is now SIG, Sauer AG in Switzerland, kind of adopting a wait-and-see attitude before getting into new things. So hopefully, 2022, there'll be new guns. Right now, none of them are on the board until they know what can happen and what they can and can't bring in. Because there's definitely a not insignificant chance the rules will change. At least that's how they feel.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can see some advantages to leaving it vague.
Yeah, I mean, better just because you had to put money up front, time up front.
It's kind of a soft way to regulate, No one's going to make a move one way or the other out of anticipation of what the new rules will be.
Plus, with holiday, with December over in Europe, they don't work a whole lot anyway, so it's probably not the best time to be planning new things. So we'll see.
Well, do you want to move on to question 13?
Yeah, let's do that, and then we'll take a break.
That question was from TB, by the way. My bad. 13. Jeffrey Hoffa says, Misha, as you've pointed out, there may be a looming problem of not just pricing but availability of 5.45 by 39 5mm ammunition in the United States. You've mentioned Romanian as a possible solution to the supply need. What other countries and manufacturers have the ready ability to produce and export 5.45 to the U.S.?
If you're talking ready availability, as in they're making it or have made it recently and are willing to make it again, that's it. Ukraine is problematic for its own reasons, and there's contradictory information about what they're really doing and what factories are up and running anyway. Besides, they have their own issues. Romania is still using 5.45, which is good, meaning they're still making it. They're also trying to get away from it and go to 5.56, which is also good for us, meaning if they do, they'll have the manufacturing capacity and potentially surplus ammo. Now, 7 and 6 ammo was prohibited years ago, but that was on a case-by-case basis. The ATF said even then, for other surplus 545 loadings, they would have to make a determination individually. So as of right now, remaining ammo, unless it is literally 7 and 6, which they have their own loading, would be legal for surplus. And of course, they could just do new manufacture. So they're absolutely our best bet. Poland ain't gonna do it. East Germany no longer exists. Russia, banned. China, who'll make anything, banned. North Korea, really? And that's really about the only users of that cartridge. Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, Finland, they never adopted 545. Why would they tool up and make it? You said, the question was ready ability to make it. I mean, any ammo maker could make it, but at that point it could be a Gila in Mexico if the money's there.
Mm. He also wanted to know if you could segue, and he's asking the right guy, Captain Segway here.
I actually drive a Segway, that's why I'm saying it. The controls are in Braille.
Nice. We're going to get footage of that.
Why not? Oh, yeah.
We're totally going to get some footage of you driving a Segway around.
Let's do it.
If you could segue into Bulgarian arsenal issues as to why we've seen so little from them, whether it's, European, U.S. pressure, the condition of the plant, international issues, what's happened to Bulgarian arsenal?
They actually seem to be doing better. A couple of years ago, it was worse. Again, we're not really seeing their stamped guns, but those were always kind of a sideline. Originally, the stamped guns, the SLR 107s, were meant to be a more economical alternative for the U.S. Well, as it turns out, they got to be as expensive as the milled guns. So at that point, why not do milled? And we are seeing, we got the SAM5 finally, and we're seeing a couple of variants of it. We've got the SAM7SF, including the 84 and the 94. And there's a fresh batch of SAM7Rs. And of course, they do the SAM7K in a few different variants. While it's not nearly Bulgaria's entire production line, it's a good chunk. We got the Krink. We got the only one we're kind of missing is there's not a 12-inch gun right now in the lineup, but that's not to say there couldn't be. So it seems like they are bringing things back. When they disappear, a lot of the time it is because they have giant, juicy military contracts. Guys, selling, say, 10,000 guns to the U.S. market that have to be modified to fit our needs, special things, who cares when you can sell 20,000 to a military? Not only are they buying the guns as you make them, but they're buying ammunition, maybe grenades, accessories, pouches, magazines upon magazines, and maybe even paying for you to send out your trainers to help them orient it. There is so much more money in military and even police contracts than there are civilian. So they pretty much get interested in us when they got not a whole lot else going on. All right, let's bring this home.
And we're back. Question 14 from Matt P. Hi, Misha. Thanks for all the great content, and I hope you're doing well. I was thinking about the Russian ammo ban, and I've seen that a lot of people in my area have been divesting themselves from their AKs. As someone who plans to stand pat, I got to thinking about 7.62 ammo availability. Do you think it's conceivable that while supply will be reduced due to the ban, demand might also fall? With less people owning AK rifles, will those that stick with them still have access to ammo? Just wondering what your thoughts are. Thanks again.
Well, I mean, yeah, when I picked up my SAR-1 here, you could easily get 7.62x39, but there was certainly less demand. I mean, no one knows the future, how things are gonna work out, but the thing is, 7.62x39, it's not just fired by the AK. There's a lot of SKSs, there's the Ruger Mini 30, there's some ARs in the caliber. There's a lot of guns that fire it. It's actually a very common and popular caliber in the US now. There will be suppliers for that market. I mean, 545, I think we'll still be able to get ammo, but it might be a little bit hit or miss, buy it when you find it type thing. But 7.62x39, honestly, I don't think we'll see a whole lot of decrease in availability, and I think we'll just see kind of a little bit of an uptick in pricing. I'm not really that worried about it. If people want to get out of it, that's fine. Will it kind of put an end or a damper on this AK fervor? Maybe, but something was always going to step in to kind of cool people off, because for the past decade, people have been kind of in an AK frenzy, and something was going to cool that down to some extent. So, yeah, maybe it's this, but no, I wouldn't worry about it. I mean, the thing is with ammo, when you run across a good price, just to buy it. And there'll be foreign suppliers, and even maybe some domestic ones. Why not?
As long as it doesn't start showing up in, boxes with lots of marketing on it. If you're going to get 7.62, it needs to come like folded up in paper and smelling a little bit like Cosmoline.
Yeah, maybe a little bit rusty.
Yeah, right.
The ammo, if I bought it and it was wrong, but this, I don't care.
Yeah.
But we'll be able to get it. It may come from some funny sources or whatnot, but hell, it might even do better. We might even see an increase in, say, match grade, target grade ammo. Different companies. I don't know. We'll see. But the market, there are millions of guns that fire it in America. There are going to be many companies happy to take that market over. And of course, there's always the potential of rebranding ammo and making it from Bulgaria instead of, say, Russia, hypothetically speaking.
I wonder if it'll ever make any inroads into, like the competitive shooting sports.
I doubt. Well, I mean, the cartridge is not especially accurate. It's not especially long ranged. It's kind of jack of all trades, master of none cartridge. The whole reason it was built was it was easy to equip a conscript army with and train conscripts to use in mass fire. It was never really meant for individual marksmen. It was meant for thousands of troops to be shooting.
Sure.
So if it is competition shooting, I think it would just be for the fun of it, to try to see just how much you could squeeze out of a cartridge, not designed initially for accuracy.
Right.
And there could be some fun in and of that.
Yeah, true. I just don't really see any of the major sporting organizations, USPSA,
I don't either.
And IDPA and whatever, getting into
Never say never, but I agree. I don't either. Americans like their accuracy in their groups too much, and I mean, people think of the AK as being inaccurate. For one thing, it's not near as inaccurate as, but a lot of it is the limiting factor. If you do 5.45 or 5.56 or heck even a 308 AK, it can be potentially very accurate.
I've shot some of your AKs that weren't exactly sighted in for bullseye work.
Yep. But a lot of them are 7.62x39. Again, it's a really good dual cartridge, but it's not really meant for long range shooting.
Question 15. G. Bobby asks, Hi Misha, on one of your videos discussing Type 3 AKs, you mentioned in the comments that Century Arms C39 receivers are not actually milled. Rather, they are cast into rough dimensions and then machined to proper fit. I've not been able to find any source confirming this besides your comment. Can you tell by the way it is made, or is this information posted somewhere? I've handled and thoroughly checked C39s before and have not been able to find flash lines or sprue marks in the receivers. The only manufacturing marks I can see and feel are small, unevenly shaped lines that run vertical to the receiver. Thanks for all your great videos. Love your content and really appreciate how you're able to keep it up even during hard times. Now,
if something is cast into rough shape and then machined down, that would obviously do away with sprue lines or, the mold lines of any type, seams. So that's where those go. Part of it is the feel of it. If you, tap a receiver and the way it feels. But mostly it's because I was told that by someone at Century back when they were doing that. In fact, I even knew the company that was making the raw castings for them. And then to kind of verify that, look at Rob Ski's testing. When it crumbles like a cookie, that's not what forged machine steel does. Now, machine steel can crack, it can chip, but it doesn't crumble like that. That is the sign of a casting with lots of inclusions, lots of impurities, and probably one that was cooled too rapidly. So yeah, I was told this
poorly heat treated and.
Well, not so much heat treated, but if you cool a casting, it needs to be done at a exact right temperature. As I point out in several videos, a good one to show you how the right way to do it would be Ruger. They use castings, but they have it down literally to a science to know what they're doing. Springfield's the same way with their M1A receivers. But if you get too much in a hurry and just cool it too quickly or unevenly, say the front half cools faster than the rear half, that's no good. And also you got to be mindful of the metal you're using. And if you look at Rob's videos, that's what happens. Heat treating is a different issue. If you overheat treat, it's gonna crack or just break. And if you underheat treat, it's gonna stretch and just egg out, malform. But now that's just, and think about it, for the money they were asking for their mill guns, how could Century do it? A true military type milled receiver for that money? No.
Well, I mean, cutting out a billet is expensive.
Yep. And even billet's a different, people forget that billet is a type of that. It's a different process, but it's still in that same family. What Century's doing is really not quite investment casting, but it's raw forge casting with final machining, milling. That way when they say it is a milled receiver, literally it was milled. So they're not lying, but they're playing fast and loose with definitions.
Well, but still, if you're not seeing a lot of tool chatter on them and that sort of thing, obviously they're doing it pretty well.
Well, they're milling it down well, but what's the metal under the surface? Are there any inclusions? What is it? And that's what they were seeing as people put high round counts on C-39s, and I don't mean 20,000 rounds, but I mean 5,000. They were failing headspace.
Already starting to fail.
Yeah, exactly. And you got to wonder, a milled receiver shouldn't do that. I mean, FN rated their 308 machined receivers at least 60,000 rounds, and potentially, much greater. But yeah, a real milled receiver should hold up Jim Dandy, and they just weren't. And for the price point, it kind of, because people were wondering back then, how are they able to do this so cheaply?
Yeah, this would be a good question to bring Rob Ski in on too.
Yeah,
that guy loves to melt him down some guns.
But he's had a lot of poor experiences with the Century guns, and that kind of just. And you notice now they've kind of gone away from the milleds. I think they might still do a few C-39s, but they've kind of gone back to casting. Stamping for that reason. It was a commercial product at any rate.
Sure. Michael Montz asks, greetings, sir. What are your thoughts on military-issue black powder cartridge rifles? There are so many patterns. 71 Mauser and 7184, Kropatschek, Verndl, Murata, Snyder, Berdan, 74 Gra. I'm not familiar with all that many of these companies, actually, so I may be butchering some pronunciations.
Some of them aren't even companies. Some of them are just the names of guns.
Pardonnez-moi. U.S. Trapdoor, Martini Henry, Remington Rolling Block, Beaumont, and probably others. The interim muzzleloader conversions add even more history as they become purpose-made in some cases. Thank you. I really enjoy your channel's content.
Well, based on the channel, I don't think much of it because that's not really what I do. I kind of pick up with smokeless powder, and because I'm interested in the 20th century, World War I, World War II, Vietnam, what have you. We all have to draw a line somewhere. And also, I don't trust myself to shoot black powder guns, load them, and I'll shoot one if someone else loads it, but But mostly it's just we all have to draw the line somewhere. Here's one of the very few black powder guns I own. This is a German Reich's revolver. The reason I have it, these were still used by some very, very unfortunate troops in World War I. What a gun. But yeah, typically if I have a gun that was initially black powder, sure. You can keep it if you like. Here's my Remington rolling block. But even this is in 7mm Mauser because it's Spanish. And if I ever found a Martini Henry that I liked that was truly original British in 303, I'd probably own it too, but every Martini I've come across in person is been questionable as to its authenticity. In fact, this might be about the only single shot I own. I do have the Benelli 87-15. That was a black powder reworked for Carcano in World War I. And I do have this gun here. This is my only lever action. A Winchester 1895. And I have this because it's in 7.62 by 54R Russian. And I thought that was kind of neat. But of course, this is a smokeless powder gun. That was kind of the whole point of the 1895, was it was strong enough to fire the new smokeless powder. Again, there's no great reason that I start with smokeless, just a lot of personal taste things. But I didn't want to have an absolute general collection going back. I needed to set hard limits so I didn't go bananas, you know. And that way I could at least a little bit specialize.
Really bizarre action on this thing.
That's one word for it. It's just a clunky old revolver. You know, and a lot of the old revolvers that are originally made for black powder, they made smokeless loadings for later. So yeah, I kind of start off like with the original Schmidt-Rubin, the 1886, commonly called the Lebel, things like that. That's just kind of where I get started. And mostly because those guns were still in use, at least by second-line units in World War I.
Here you go.
Civil War's neat.
I decided I'm not going to take that one with me after all.
So there you go. Yeah. Probably one of those guns that's more dangerous to the shooter than the shootee. I don't know. No, I picked it up just because it
mutually
was
assured destruction.
Absolutely. Well, someone's getting destroyed. But yeah, it's just, you know, no particular reason. I think they're neat. And I really like the early self-loading guns, the tube loaders. You know, like a Swiss Vetterli would be cool. But again, had to kind of set some soft rules for myself. So yeah, I go with metallic cartridge, smokeless powder to begin with.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, you gotta start somewhere. Gotta end somewhere. It's kind of like how your dad, he doesn't really do Mausers outside of the Swedish Mausers. Just,
yeah.
You know, that's kind of his limit. He doesn't really do a lot of Mosins outside of Finnish.
I guess that's true.
Even if he has a Russian one, chances are it's got an SA marking on it.
Probably. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that kind of ties back into something you were talking about earlier when it comes to what you should collect and what's good and what's worth having or whatever. It's what you like.
Yeah, it's what you're into, and this way I have a very broad. I mean, the saying 20th century is a hugely broad field, and but it also narrows it down enough that I can kind of dig in to some topics. For example, the infield. I've done some pretty in-depth videos on the infield. It interests me.
I don't think I'm probably ever going to be able to get that Schmidt-Rubin off of him either. At least, not the good way.
Oh, Schmidt-Rubins. They're neat guns mechanically. I do have a Murata, but it's a 22, which is the first smokeless powder. And that's neat. So I do have a few tube-fed guns, but they are smokeless powder.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, the bottom of this email says end transmission, so... Why don't you wrap her up?
Yeah. Alrighty, guys. Well, there's our next Q&A. And
camera's over that way.
Where?
Keep turning.
I don't want to.
Turn too far. Back the other way.
I'm gonna look this way.
All right. Hold on. Nope. Back to the right. Okay, you're safe there.
Yeah. Anyway, guys. Yeah. Appreciate you tuning in. If you caught this early through Patreon, you got the extended blooper-filled edition. And if you caught this a little bit later on YouTube, you got the kind of streamlined, less
bullshit from J-Ro.
Yeah, edition.
The less bullshit from me edition.
And we appreciate you tuning in. Again, like I said at the top of the video, $1 a month. You can contribute as many questions as you want. $5 and up, you can get kind of early access to some things, kind of see a schedule. Video requests are entertained. $10 and up, pretty much get direct contact, whatever, perks there on the Patreon page if you'd like to check them out. Really do appreciate it because ammo is going up in price. Everything's more expensive. You know how it goes. And Gunbroker's doing wonky stuff now, so who knows how much longer that's going to go. And kind of relating back to the talking about SAM-Swiss and all that, who knows what the government's going to do, just little FFLs like myself going forward. But you take it a day at a time. And yeah, I've been trying new things, doing whatnot, but we still are able to do these every 2 or 3 months, and we'll post a new thread on Patreon for taking new questions for the early winter Q&A. You have to check that out. So yeah, hopefully everyone who donated got their question answered. I don't know if it's the right answer, but got an answer. And we really do
some
greatly.
Some of them I might have read right, and some of them might not have.
More fun when you do more.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. I want to put some fake ones in next time, just like completely fake questions.
Yeah, there should be a few more in English.
English? Oh, yeah, email was hilarious. But, yeah, that was, got this knocked out, guys, kind of during a stormy old day. So, as always, if you could, please like, share, and subscribe. And again, if you'd like to know more information, visit the link to our Patreon page.
Thanks for watching.
This is Misha.
This is J-Ro.
And we'll catch you very soon next time.